Witness the glory, the chaos, the rise and fall of Europe.
For over a century now, there's one name that's been practically synonymous with the night, with Gothic horror, with that chilling idea of the immortal. And that name is Dracula. It's this image, right? The cape, the fangs, the castle. It's so deeply woven into our culture that it feels like he's always been there, just lurking in the shadows of our imagination.
Ah, that line. It gives you chills, doesn't it? That iconic quote from Bram Stoker's novel just perfectly captures the character we all think we know. You know, the sophisticated, terrifying creature of the night calling to the wolves from his castle. It's a powerful, incredible piece of fiction that has lasted for so long.
But that's the key word right there, fiction. So today we're going to peel back the layers of that story to find the real person underneath. We're going to investigate the historical figure whose name was borrowed for the world's most famous monster. And trust me, his real story is, in its own way, just as terrifying as the myth.
Okay, so to find our guy, we have to travel back in time, way back. We're going to 15th century Eastern Europe, to a place called Wallachia, which is in modern-day Romania. And his name wasn't Count Dracula. He was Prince Vlad III. History, though, would give him a much darker title, Vlad the Impaler.
So right away, you can see just how stark the difference is between the legend and the actual man. The story gives us Count Dracula, a vampire from Transylvania. The reality? Prince Vlad III, a mortal human ruler from Wallachia, a neighboring region. He wasn't some king of the undead, he was a voivode, which is basically a military prince who was just fighting like crazy to keep his throne.
So you're probably asking, okay, where did the name Dracula even come from? Well, this is one of the most surprising parts of the story. It was actually a title of honor. See, Vlad's father was part of this very prestigious Christian knighthood called the Order of the Dragon. Their whole job was to defend Christianity from its enemies, especially the expanding Ottoman Empire. His dad was known as Dracula, which means the dragon. So Vlad III was simply called Dracula, which literally just means son of the dragon. It was a noble title, not a demonic one. Crazy, right?
All right, so he may have had a noble name, but the reputation that Vlad built for himself was, well, anything but. To really understand Vlad the Impaler, you first have to understand the unbelievably brutal world that he lived in. Think of Vlad's little kingdom of Wallachia as being stuck between a rock and a hard place. I mean, it was this tiny buffer state caught in a massive tug-of-war between two superpowers of the day, the Ottoman Empire to the south and the Kingdom of Hungary to the north. His entire reign was a constant, desperate battle for survival, and not just against foreign armies. He also had to deal with his own treacherous nobles called boyars, who were always plotting against him.
In this incredibly violent world, Vlad's response was to be even more violent. Historians estimate he was responsible for the deaths of up to 80,000 people. Now, just let that number sink in. For the 15th century, that is a staggering, almost unbelievable figure. And it wasn't just that he killed so many people, it was how he did it that would seal his terrifying legacy forever.
And this is where you really see his strategy. Impalement wasn't just some random act of cruelty, it was a calculated tool of power. First, it was a public spectacle, a horrific, agonizing death designed to absolutely terrify anyone who might even think of challenging him. Second, it was psychological warfare on a massive scale. There's this legendary story that when the Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II invaded, he wasn't met by an army. No, he was met by a gruesome forest of 20,000 impaled Ottoman captives. The sight was so horrifying that the Sultan supposedly just turned his entire army around and went home. And finally, he used it to enforce absolute order. It didn't matter if you were a foreign enemy, a corrupt noble, or a petty thief, the punishment was the same.
Vlad was killed in battle in 1476. So how in the world does this medieval prince, as brutal as he was, transform over 400 years into a supernatural creature of the night? The journey from man to monster is a pretty fascinating tale of politics, propaganda, and a little bit of literary genius.
You can really see the slow burn transformation here. It starts right after his death, with German printing presses churning out these pamphlets that were basically political smear campaigns, painting him as an absolute monster. Then, his story kind of fades into the background for nearly 400 years, until an Irish author named Bram Stoker stumbles across the name Dracula and decides it's perfect for his new horror story. And of course, the final step was the movies. When Bela Lugosi stepped on screen in 1931, that's the moment the vampire image was cemented in our minds forever.
Now here's the wild part. Bram Stoker never even set foot in Romania. His creation was really a work of literary alchemy. It's like he had a recipe. He took a memorable name, Dracula. He mixed in that reputation for cruelty he'd read about. Then he added a big dose of Eastern European folklore about the undead, these creatures called the strigoi. For the Count's personality, he supposedly based it on his charismatic boss, an actor named Henry Irving. And then he set it all in a mysterious faraway land, Transylvania. So you see, Vlad the Impaler wasn't the basis for the character, he was just one potent ingredient in the mix.
And so, we're left with this really fascinating split in how history remembers this guy. The man, Vlad III, left behind a legacy that's completely contradictory. It all depends on your point of view.
And this is really the crucial point. In the West, thanks to Stoker's book and a century of horror movies, the name Dracula means one thing: vampire. End of story. But in Romania, Vlad the Impaler is often remembered in a totally different light. There, he's often seen as a national hero. A brutal ruler, yes, but an effective one who defended his homeland from invasion and brought order to a chaotic world. For many, he's a symbol of fierce independence. It's just incredible, one man with two completely opposite legacies.
So that leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? Was Vlad a patriotic hero who did what was necessary to protect his people, or was he a monstrous tyrant who loved cruelty? The truth is, he was probably both. History is rarely a simple story of good versus evil, and in the case of Vlad the Impaler, the man behind the myth, well, the final verdict really does depend on which side of the stake you're on.